Hey everybody, it's Mr. Bierbauer with our next art lesson. This week we're going to be learning about another element of art, and it is going to be shape. The materials you'll need today will be paper, a pencil, and then something to draw with, crayons, markers, or colored pencils. Now we'll start our class like we always do with our artist promise. As artists, we will always try our best, respect ourselves, our friends, and our artwork, take responsibility, imagine new things, support each other, and take time to clean up. Our I Can statement for today is I can use shapes to create a castle inspired by Paul Klee. Here's an example of my castle that I did, and I'm going to show you guys how to do your own. Now, as a reminder, we've been talking about the elements of art. So far, we've talked about line and color and texture. This week, we're going to talk about shapes. So a shape is basically just a flat, closed area in art. It could be closed with a line, like this circle here. You see there's a line around it, which makes a white circle. Or it could be closed with colors around it. You can see there's no line here, but there's a blue box around it, so it makes that same white circle, even without a line. So what kind of shapes can you describe? All right, let's see some examples. So first of all, we have geometric shapes, and those are man-made shapes, kind of like we learn about in math class. The shapes are normally straight and careful. So what are some of these shapes? So we have a square, we have a rectangle, a circle, and a triangle. And here are some examples of uses of geometric shapes in artwork. So if we look at this first picture, New York, you can see there are a lot of geometric shapes in there. There are a ton of squares, mostly squares, some rectangles. You can see the whole thing is made out of shapes. And then over here, The Castle and Sun by Paul Klee, he's got a lot of geometric shapes too. Tons of squares and triangles, circles up here for the sun. He's got like some semicircles for like a little arch here, triangles. The other sort of shapes you might see in art are organic shapes, and those are natural shapes. So they might be bumpy, curvy, or uneven. They're more like things that we would find in nature. So here are some different kind of blobs. Some of those look maybe like they could be clouds or trees. And then over here we've got sort of a leaf shape. So all of those are going to be natural shapes. They're not ones that we would do in math. And here are some examples of organic shapes in artwork. So in this first one, Alnium by Paul Feely, you can see those orange ones kind of look like jacks, if you've ever played that game before. And then those blue blobs they're kind of squarish, but then somebody squished them in and turned them into blobs. And then over here, the sheaf by Henry Matisse, those are all natural shapes. They look like leaves or maybe pieces of wheat. All right, so here is the example. The first one here is, again, Castle and Sun by Paul Klee. And then the one next to it is the one that I did. You can see I also used mostly geometric shapes just like he did. I added a couple organic clouds up in the top because I thought that would be fun. And you can see he mostly made his red. I used a lot of blue in mine. And one thing that is different because of the materials that I only had one blue in my marker set. So I only have one type of blue. But if you look over here, he has lots of reds. He's got like really dark reds. He's got brighter reds. So when you're doing yours, depending on what materials you're using, you may be able to use more than one color, whatever color you choose to focus on. So now I'm going to show you step by step on how to do it. Remember, you can work along at the same time as me, or you can watch it first and then work on it afterwards.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the foundation of our castle. And we're just going to be using our basic shapes. So I'm going to start some rectangles for the bottom. And you can see I am freehanding, which means I'm not using a ruler. If you want it to be very precise, you could either use a ruler, or if you had some shapes you could trace, like pattern blocks. So I'm going to do a couple rectangles coming in from each side, and then probably one more shorter one. And I'm going to leave some space in the middle, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. After that, I'm going to fill it up with some more rectangles or squares, whichever shapes you want to do. And I'm trying to keep mine so it's sort of the same on both sides, which means it's almost symmetrical. So if I folded it in half, it would be very similar on both sides. You can see this side's a little bit longer than that side, but that's fine. Let me do some taller ones. And the reason why I'm doing all these big ones right now is because a lot of times if you look at castles, they are made out of very big blocks of stone. And then let's see, I'll do 2 more rows of those, maybe a little bit shorter as it gets towards the top. And you can see, once I do my first one, I don't have to draw as many lines to finish the other ones. So there we go. Now, right now these blocks are very big, but they're also a little bit boring. So I'm gonna add some details in them. So some of them I might do a line halfway down, so it'll split it in half into 2 triangles. And I'm gonna try to do the same thing on both sides so it's symmetrical again. You don't have to do that. I'm gonna split this one maybe into 2 or 3 smaller rectangles. And this one I only have room for 1. Let's see, you could also do some horizontal lines to split them in half that way. This way we're just making it so we have more shapes. Triangles. After that, you can see I left a big space in the middle, and that's because this is going to be the opening to our castle, which a lot of times you might hear called the portcullis, or if there was a door here, it might come down as a drawbridge. So I'll just do a line there. I'm going to do a semicircle or a half circle to close the top. And then I am going to, let's see, I'll just do one across, and then I'm going to just split it in 2 pieces going down, and then split each of those into another piece. So I have some very tall, skinny rectangles for that. And then maybe I'll make like a V shape there to split it into sort of, they look like pieces of pizza to me. I'm gonna do 1 more row up here, a tall one. So I'm gonna go higher so it goes above my drawbridge all the way across. And then I'm gonna split it into shapes again. So I'll do some rectangles, 3 on that side, 1, 2, 3 on this side. And again, yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. I just want to make sure you use a lot of the different shapes in it. So you can see I have squares, I have rectangles, I have some triangles. Maybe I'll add some more triangles. Maybe one here, a line there to make that 2 triangles, one over here. And then on top, a lot of times if you look at a castle, it has sort of alternating squares up top. Those are called parapets. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just make 1 square, and then I'm going to skip a little bit, another square. So rectangle, square, skip a little bit, another one, skip a little bit. So it's almost like we're doing a pattern of square or rectangle and then nothing, and then a square or rectangle and then nothing. And then I'm going to do the same thing from this side. You can see now I have that nice top shape like the top of a castle. I have a little bit of room in the sky, so I'm going to add some clouds. So those, remember, are going to be more organic shapes because they're not like a precise shape like you learn about in math. They're not straight edges. They're more of a natural thing because you would find them in nature. So I'll add a couple of those. Then I'm going to add maybe right in the middle my sun, which is a circle. So that is a geometric shape. And then I think I might be done with that. So actually, I'm going to go in and add a couple more shapes to break up some more spaces so we don't have as many just big blocks. So this time I'm going to make like an X in the middle of that one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. Do the same thing over here. You can see I'm not being super precise, so like that's not a perfect triangle, but it gives the same effect. And then, let's see, maybe split that one in half, split that one in half. And I think I want to do something else with this portcullis here. So how about a big, well, let's see, split it in half. So now we have 8 rectangles, and then split each of those in half. So now they're squares. And then to make it so all of this looks like it's still part of the same thing and not the castle, I'm going to do some vertical lines in some of them so they kind of come together. There, so now all of that looks like it's part of the same area. Maybe a couple more. Okay, so you could be finished now, but I'm going to go ahead and color. And if you remember when we looked at Paul Klee's artwork, he kind of chose one color to focus on. He did a lot of reds and then did some other colors around it. So I think I'm going to make this a blue castle. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and color a lot of the areas blue. So most of the areas will be blue inside it, and then I'll have some other areas of different colors. All right, so you can see I am done with my blues. I filled in a lot of areas all around my picture with the blue because that's what I wanted to focus on. And now I'm just going to go in and use some of my other colors and fill in more of the areas. You do not have to fill in every single spot because you can leave the white showing through from your paper as another color. All right, and here you can see my finished castle inspired by Paul Klee. You can see how I used mostly blue throughout the whole thing, but then I added other colors as well. I probably could have even used more blue, but I wanted to make sure I had some nice room for everything else. So yours do not have to be this detailed, but definitely make sure you use geometric shapes to make your castle. Choose one color that you want to use the most, and then after that, just go in and add your other colors as well.
All right, let's review those steps. So the first thing you're going to do is begin your castle with just your basic geometric shapes, like maybe squares or rectangles. Remember, I made mine, tried to make mine symmetrical, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You also don't have to make it as complicated as mine. After you've done your basic castle, then you're going to add details by going in and creating more shapes, like you might split some of those squares into triangles or rectangles. You might add some organic shapes like the clouds. Next, you're going to choose which color you want to focus on. So you can see I focused on blue, so I used blue all around my castle first. After you have done that, you'll add your other castle or your other colors to finish your castle. And remember, you can leave some spots white because white is a color as well. And then afterwards, just make sure you show off your work and turn it in to me on campus. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you have a great week.